All right, gentlemen, excited to have this conversation. I don't think there's two other dudes I'd rather have this convo with about influencer as a performance channel. Not often we get a three-way convo, but I think what I'm excited about is between us we have a unique perspective, like being all pretty young companies, 2020, 2021 founded, but have been at the tip of the spear when it comes to influencer as a channel. From my side, being a CMO and founder at an agency that's building these programs for category leading brands like Create. And I know, Dan, we've had the pleasure of partnering with you recently, recent client, over the last several months, but have been able together to build one of the strongest case studies to date for us on TikTok Shop, getting you guys from zero to one of the top shops. And I think for me, I would credit that mostly to you as a founder. Your like perspective on influencer and your aggressiveness to investing into the opportunity has been one of the biggest drivers there. So, and then obviously Anders, we go way back and partner together on a lot of brands, but you are, from an innovation and platform standpoint, leading the charge with some of the biggest brands in the ecosystem. So happy to have you guys.
Woo. Thanks for having us. Dan, I can attest. I see you on my TikTok constantly, which is great. I saw the David Beckham shout out and the founder recorded video, which was amazing. I'm stoked.
All right, well, let's just start like high level, maybe primer on influencer as a channel. My question, Dan, is to you as someone who is like investing actively as a founder into influencer as a performance channel. How do you view success there, and walk us through like what your program looks like today?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I would say the first thing, as like every channel in growth marketing, it's like constantly evolving, and the number one thing you can do is just to stay on top of trends as to what's working across other brands. So for influencer, how you compensate them, how you communicate with them, how you recruit them, on which platforms you're using in their content, all of that is just like constantly changing. I think the one thing that stays constant is like the ability to create good relationships with content creators will like always kind of be important for brands that are like kind of centrally putting content out into the world to attract audiences and people to buy their products. Our program looks like today, it's actually largely powered by the two gentlemen on this call. So on the affiliate influencer side of things, we use Superfiliate across a bunch of different programs. So everything from referral all the way up to like our most hands-on one-to-one influencer relationships with people that we have on monthly retainers. And then aside from just kind of straight D2C affiliate and influencer relationships, we use 0 to 1 to kind of scale out our TikTok Shop affiliate program. So that looks much like it looks like on the other channels, but it's all kind of facilitated through TikTok's owned platform. In terms of kind of scale, it's really tough to put a number on how much influencer contributes to the business. What I will say is that like everything we do from a marketing perspective in some way is impacted by influencers that we work with, from content creation to messaging to top of funnel. Like there's an influencer that kind of touches all of it. So yeah, that's our program today.
Dan, I think you guys also did an amazing job. What I saw scrolling on TikTok, and I saw you with your girlfriend or partner and wife. I saw that David Beckham had posted you all, and then you all like ran. I think like when founders get this viral moment, and then like they double down on it really hard. I think that it does so much. It's kind of like the Stanley Cup CEO buying a car for that woman. Like you had this like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the craziest moment, and then like I thought that was such a great response, because that was like, people always ask, how do you run influencers? How do you scale influencers? And sometimes you get, it's a mix between luck and also brokering those partnerships. But like, I don't know, that was an amazing moment to watch from the outside. I'm sure, Micah, you have felt the same on your end.
I've got a different moment that probably highlights the same, which we can talk about too, Dan. But yeah, curious your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, and maybe it's the same moment, but just Anders may have misnamed the celebrity. It was Adam Levine, another skinny, tatted up, cool guy.
It was Adam Levine. Yes.
Yeah, so it was Adam Levine. But I think to your point, like half of this game is just like people getting lucky and being opportunistic, and when they see an opportunity, like quadrupling down on it and making the most out of it, whether it's like really
Yep.
cheap CPMs during 2020, or some influencer posted about your brand and you're going to like put tens of thousands of dollars to spend behind it really, really quickly. A lot of this is just like, how can you find that little that little nut of luck essentially, and how can you nurture
Yep.
it and grow it into like a sustainable piece of the business?
Totally.
So
And
great.
tactically on that, just like thinking back on like how we juiced that. Obviously we didn't expect it to come. We just clipped the video, and the good thing about TikTok is like so much of the content there, you can use snippets of other content. It's pretty common practice with green screen, etc. So we just like gave affiliates, here's this clip of Adam Levine, hyped it up, and then we had a bunch of people use that clip in the content, which
Mhm.
was our first round of like high converting creative on Spark ads. So definitely got lucky on that one.
Not complaining.
I'm curious too, because like one of the most exciting things for me is like obviously there's direct attributable ROAS from these programs, which everyone is excited about, but like quantifying the secondary value of these programs, both top of funnel awareness that like has a halo effect across your marketing mix, but then also like the efficiency you get from just the pipeline of media that you can spin off, like both from like a cheap content production standpoint, but also like through tactics like Spark and through whitelisting. I'm most excited about that. I feel like it's, to your point, Dan, it's tough to put your finger on the direct value there, but like, what have you seen from your standpoint of running programs like this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people lose the forest through the trees when it comes to attribution. Like, I run the business essentially on a blended basis. So I'm looking at top line and I'm looking at MARE on a hourly basis, daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. And what that allows me to do is to like be a little bit less concerned about something that I think intuitively feels really incremental to me, even if the data doesn't yet support it, like TikTok shops. I think like a really good example here is like when we launched TikTok shops, Triple Whale and Shopify and TikTok didn't necessarily have a good kind of like integration when it came to analytics. So everything looked like really underperforming. But every other piece of feedback we were getting, from like people texting me to views on videos to all the things that like are indicators of success, were pointing in the right direction. And so like I could understand from a blended basis something like TikTok shops, which started kind of looking really underperformant, was probably actually on a blended basis for the business really performant. And so we like, I think, scaled faster than we've ever scaled any channel before, and went from like $1,000 a day to 15, 20K of paid spend on that channel for a period of time. And that wasn't based off of like very verifiable attribution data, cross-reference across Triple Whale and North Beam and GA4. It's just like, oh shit, on a blended basis, all the numbers are going up, and the only thing we've changed is TikTok shops.
Honors, I know we talk quite a bit about attribution in building programs. From your standpoint, like from the technology standpoint, how do you measure the value of these programs, and do you have any suggestions on how to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I wish there was a Dan at every company running it and seeing it as a
Right,
blended
right.
perspective, because I mean it's a more sophisticated approach, because I see a lot of people that say, look, I invest in TikTok shop and I'm looking at my blended CAC, and my Amazon has gone, my GMV at Amazon has gone way up and my CAC on Amazon has gone down, so it's like, as an awareness channel, it's like you can't undervalue that. And I also think everyone wants their program to look like XYZ brands, right? They'll be like, I want my program to look like Athletic Greens. And then you talk to the Athletic Greens team and you realize it took them 6 months to 12 months to get to like even +1 ROAS on basic partnerships, right? When it comes to like actual attribution, in the beginning of Superfiliate, we were really focused on just last click revenue, right? Then we started building things that were more vanity metrics. So we started looking at like earned media value, which is a CPM basis off of the actual posts. I don't think anyone should run their entire program based on EMB. I think it's just an interesting thing to kind of like also put in the mix to understand and have another variable. And then we built something that we're calling attribution windows, which is basically storing a cookie on a user's device. Of course, cookies and the war against cookies is very much underway, but it's the same thing with Meta, right? Meta has the 7-day cookie, and we turned on cookies for some of the influencer channels. And what we saw was kind of ridiculous. We saw increases in conversion of upwards like 50%, but not just in 7 days. We saw it sometimes in like 24 hours, right? And that was because there's the buyer's journey is total chaos, right? So I'll go and add this item to my cart, right? And then anything in my life will happen. I'll open Instagram. I will go on a walk. I will jump on a call like this. It's like so many people fall off the last click conversion metric. So if you're not doing attribution windows, even basic attribution windows, you may be missing out on 20 to 30% of what I would argue as direct response influencer revenue. And then as you make that window larger and larger, you have to say, okay, it's less direct response, but it's influenced revenue. And then, of course, we've worked with a lot of post-purchase surveys as well to say, okay, generally 20 to 30% of people are saying they were influenced to purchase by an influencer or a creator. And then maybe only 10% of that's last click revenue. So there's got to be some type of evolution in how founders and marketers are thinking about it. I find that having a Dan in a company is very rare. And most of the time it's an influencer and affiliate marketing manager who's actually having to make the case to a founder, which can actually be really difficult for them. And I think when someone doesn't have Dan's perspective here about a blended CAC, a lot of times founders are forgetting that, hey, your ROAS on your Meta account has gone down by, or like, the return's gone way up, and like your CAC has gone way down over time because of having great influencer content. So in short, like look at everything and then have a very blended perspective, like Dan said. And I think you can't expect these things to just, in month one, be returning everything you want to be. And there's going to be spillover effects because the buyer's journey is chaos across the board.
Yeah. Well, that's why we, do value E&V. For us, it's not like valuing the program, but it's a leading indicator because like to get to ROAS positive, It does take 3 to 6 months, but we look for certain milestones along the way that says, hey, we're on the right track. We're doing the right things. What levers do we need to pull to get to a ROAS positive kind of base program? I'm curious too, because the other piece of this is looking from a blended standpoint is creative cost. Dan, I'm sure you have paid, maybe are paying for a lot of UGC creative, et cetera. I know just working with you that some of the top performing creative in Meta now came from the influencer affiliate program on TikTok Shop. How do you view creative cost as a part of that equation?
Yeah, I view creative as almost like a fixed cost that you're trying to amortize across as many different channels as possible. And so if the origin of that creative is actually like a revenue driving piece of creative, like an influencer posting on Instagram or TikTok, that just makes the game like so much easier. But the trick then is like, all right, we have this piece of creative that worked on TikTok. How can we repurpose it on Meta? How can we then recruit this person that posted on TikTok Shops to become a UGC creator for us? It's making posts on a cadence basis, and like we're figuring out how to compensate them properly outside of TikTok Shops. How can we put that content in email or on a landing page? And so, yeah, it's just like, how can you take this, what I think to be like a relatively fixed cost, whether it's the cost of seeding them the product or actually paying them to create the content, how can you amortize that across as many different platforms, use cases, etc., as many times as possible?
Dan, are you finding that the top creators, like maybe the more expensive ones or the people that have a higher following, that when it actually translates to CAC on paid, are they the outliers, or is it random sometimes? Is it like if you have a very viral TikTok shop video that maybe the creator's not big, but it went viral and then you put it to paid, it did really well? Like, do you see any correlations there in the type of content that's performing?
Not a ton, and something that's like changes often, I feel like, especially over the last year or so, is how effective whitelisting is. I feel like whitelisting is like a pretty good feature for testing exactly what you're asking about, is like how much does a creator's following correlate with success in their paid media. And what we're seeing is like there's not really a huge difference between you take the same piece of content, whitelist it under X creator's account versus taking that content and running against your account. Like sometimes it outperforms, sometimes it underperforms, but over the long scale of things, we haven't really seen any major difference. What I would say is that like
so interesting,
the creators oftentimes that are professional creators are professional. They know how to make really good content, and that performs across channels. So like a guy we work with, Thomas DeLauer, he has like 3 million YouTube followers, pumps out high quality YouTube videos 3 days, like 3 to 4 times a week, like every other day. When you ask him to make a Facebook ad, that Facebook ad, like it whips. It's awesome. Like it's snappy. He says the right things. He knows hooks. It looks good. Like that's going to be a good piece of content. On the other side of things, like the barbell is someone who like has no idea what they're doing, and that kind of comes across authentically in feed. That does really well. Where we see it not being as good is that like messy middle of like this person's a creator, but like there's a reason no one knows who they are. They're not a great creator. Like they haven't built their personal account, or they haven't like taken off in some way. So that messy middle is like where we see the least amount of kind of alpha, I would say.
Yeah. And I would even say
That's
like
fascinating.
specifically on TikTok Shop, initially our strategy was to go broad and to get a lot of people to build buzz, and I feel like that there was a utility in that. But in terms of performance and revenue, like the bulk of the revenue, 80-90% of the revenue came off the back of a handful of higher quality creators that we partner with strategically over a longer time frame. So I feel like it's a little bit of an and scenario, but definitely from like a conversion ad creative whitelisting spark standpoint, like finding creators that that resonate with your brand, that can create good content, understand the mechanics of a good ad, and then working with them over the long term to test different angles, hooks, etc. is probably the play.
Anders, you like I'm talking from an N of one insight here. You see across hundreds of different brands. What's your take on the question that you asked me?
Yeah, I mean, the take that I have on what content performs well, I think is very similar to yours, which is when you have an amazing creator who has a huge following, there's a reason they got there, right? The algorithm didn't just luckily reward them over time. If you have a YouTuber that's making 3 to 4 videos a week, that is a ridiculous amount of content for YouTube. They're excellent at what they do, right? And so I think it's not surprising to hear about that barbell where you have an amazing creator and then that content does really well, not only on organic social, but also on paid. And then the really authentic kind of like, they're just making the video from like, the fluorescent light coming down from the top. And they're not used to making the content. People really resonate. They are just like, okay, it's a real person that's talking to me. I'm actually curious how that ends up translating into live shopping over time, because there's been so many false starts with live shopping. But we see the exact same thing. Consumers are also smarter. Like when I just internalize this, when I'm scrolling on social media, I feel the exact same, right? There's someone who knows how to hook people psychologically. They know how to make excellent content. They also know how to edit to, our dopamine cycles that, either capture our attention or don't. And then there's also the like more drawn out ones where you kind of just feel it's high relatability. I think the lack of relatability in the middle, like we are seeing the exact same thing that you are seeing, just kind of across the board.
So what do you look for, Dan, in terms of criteria? Like you're going to select influencers, you're going to make a bet. How do you make that bet?
Yeah. Honestly, it's a lot like casting, right? Like, does this person have the look and feel of the intended audience that we're trying to reach? And so a big piece of that is making sure that not everyone looks and acts and follows or is followed by the exact same group of people, because we're trying to test across different audiences. But to the point, like, have they built an audience themselves? Is that audience really engaging with their content? Are they a trusted source of information, or are they someone that like started on Instagram in 2017 and like got to 1 million followers and just has kind of been milking that like 1 million follower range for the last 5 years without really producing great content, engaging with their audience? And so, yeah, I mean, I think like the big indicators of success is like, is this person a good content creator? Are they still actively growing their account? And of the people that they're attracting, do the followers seem to actually care about what they're saying, or are they just like another hot person that like posts thirst traps and like with a supplement brand like that? For us, there's a lot of that, right? There's like jack dudes in the gym holding up a thing of protein. Like, I don't think that actually sells, or it shouldn't. Versus like, someone that has a really insightful take on protein synthesis and why protein's really good for this specific group of people and all of that. So yeah, the ability to produce high quality content, the ability to continuously engage with your audience, and like some level of credibility and trust with the audience.
I love the casting metaphor you use, which is, I view it very much as TV, right? It's like a TV regular in a TV series, and you're never going to book a one-off pilot and then expect that to work, right? It's like you're going to have multiple episodes, and someone who's really educational is selling into their audience. Like anytime someone books someone, I'm always like, don't book them once, never book them once. Obviously you want to take risks in certain places, and like sometimes it's so expensive that it's hard to take multiple posts, but sometimes we see it that the third or fourth post is the one that converts the most. And then it really starts converting all the time, right? Because maybe you're not a direct response purchase, and maybe you are, but maybe the audience took a couple posts to get used to it or to come off of something else or whatever it is, you know. And I think selling and actually buying from a creator multiple posts, if you're buying up front, is really important. But then also, if you're working on an affiliate basis, there's so many people who just look at one post and it didn't go well, and they're like, that creator didn't work. And I think it's just so short-sighted, and I don't think those people are just not seeing creator marketing for what it is, which is relationship marketing over time. And then you should be really focused on net creator retention. You know, out of the 100 tier 1 people that I got, how many did I retain year over year? And I think very similar to how you all see TikTok Shop, you know, there's this huge top of funnel, there's like an okay middle of funnel, but when you really look at the results, it's always that Pareto principle where the top 10 are doing 80% of the results. And like, what does that mean? You know, did you now have to do that huge top of funnel to find the next 10? You better keep those 10 because you had to go through all of that to get there. So yeah, we're seeing that as well across the board.
So what about micro creators? Because I know, you know, you could be surprised. It's not always who you thought it was going to be. Like oftentimes in these programs, we're finding smaller creators who do a ton of conversions. And a lot of those micro creators aren't, you know, trained on best practices on what's going to convert and perform well, but active advocates of your branding can be nurtured. So we focus a lot there, but curious, even Anders, on your side, like you see the inside of lots of different programs and the different tiers and structures and what communities look like. How do you look at micro creators and how to get the most out of them?
Yeah, I think first of all, you never know who's going to be the next macro creator out of that group. Every macro creator started as a micro creator at some point. You know, we've never been in a time where you can go viral as fast as you can, like on TikTok. I'm actually tracking a lot of people where I'm very interested in the people that only have 3 to 6 posts, but they've gotten to 100K and why they've gotten there. But also, you know, I think similar to what Dan mentioned earlier, if they're a micro creator, but they've stayed around the same, you know, following rate and they haven't really grown, but they're not producing great content, like that's probably not the best fit. But if it's someone who's opting into your program, they absolutely love you, that authenticity is going to translate into their content, right? So we always look at attitude. We actually have a very subjective perspective. Of course, we have so many people that apply to our programs. You know, we have like tens of thousands of people that apply to our programs across the hundreds of brands that we work with, you know, every month. And then there's this question of, is it based on their follower count? Is it based on their answers? I love the influencer and affiliate marketing managers who say, okay, they fit this criteria. I'm going to spend 10 minutes on the phone with them. And I think people undervalue the power of being the founder or the influencer marketing manager or the agency and spending time with the micro creators because it's a 10-minute phone call. And if you compare that to your acquisition costs, like if you value your own time and then you take the actual affiliate commission and you compare it to the CAC that you're going to get on paid, like you are looking at the lowest CAC you can imagine by doing something so simple and making someone feel so recognized. And that person, we've seen them be some of the biggest performers over time because they're also selling all the time. Right? With the macro creators, they're busy, they have more things going on. Maybe you get a few posts and you negotiate that. Maybe you're working with their agent. If you get a micro creator to be like really on top of, you know, posting about you, they're selling into their audience all the time. And it also gets to the point where, let's just say I'm working for Create as a micro creator and I post gym content. Create's part of my daily routine. I'm not even selling Create. It's a micro mention in my content. You know, oh, taking my gummies, you know, and then I have my blender bottle and I have my protein and then I go to the gym, you know, and like that's a micro mention to my audience because it's creating this atomic habit. And so my audience is doing similar things to me and trying to create similar habits. And I would argue that the LTV of those customers is enormous that are getting acquired through those micro creators.
Totally. I think it's an 80-20 rule. Like I think casting a wide net, like volume unlocks like how you're going to find those creators that really resonate with you. And I don't even care in the beginning stages if they convert. It's like first thing is, do they post content? Yep. Are they active? Because if you can cast a wide net, you identify your top 20% and then you focus most of your time on that 20%. And that's where you see the most return. So it's go broad and then identify those people. And then how do you engage, nurture, train, equip them to do better over the long term? And you can even enable that with like platform as well. And you guys facilitate some of that, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then at the end of the day, I always say this, we could build the best software in the world and there can still be a failure point, which is the end person building the relationship. Yeah. Right? I would always recommend a founder like Dan, you could probably get on a call, and I'm sure you do this with some of your creators. You could probably get on a 30-person group call with your best micro creators And you've gotten so big so quick that they would think it's really awesome. It's the CEO of Create. Oh, it's that, ambassador or affiliate program I'm a part of. How many CEOs are getting on the phone with these people and making them feel recognized and seen and getting feedback? It's going to pay off in spades. And so we could do a lot of the relationship management. We integrate into Instagram and TikTok, and you can do DMs, you can capture all the content. That's all amazing and great. But I always say, look, this is us building software. And at the end of the day, you have to build that relationship over time. And so I think there's a lot of undervalued tactics that founders, executives, and then influencer and affiliate marketing managers can do to scale, their relationships with these micro creators.
Yeah, it's something I've not done in a while, and I think it's something that I put a ton of focus on when the brand first started, and probably when our influencer program was like at its height, at least that type of influencer relationship. So it's a good reminder to kind of reach out and either one-on-one or in groups, like making sure that we're engaging with these folks. And the other thing I'll say, because you mentioned it and it reminded me, like when we started with you guys, the software was great and it was like best in class to all that, but you guys have added all these new features in the past like 3 to 6 months, and this isn't selling. I don't care if anyone is buying because I'm saying this, but like your platform has totally changed over the past like 3 to 6 months of all the new features you've done. It's cool to see.
I appreciate that. And I think there's a lot of technology companies that build a core technology and they don't keep the team together. And then they become more of a sales organization. And I think we've been very grateful and lucky to have an amazing product tech and design org that just stays there and is just in the market. And then we've also hired the very human side of all of it, which is like, all right, we can again have the best software, but then how do you spoon feed it to the market? And then we're just constantly getting feedback from people like both of you, which has been amazing. And I think there's only going to be more stuff to come here. I personally want to lean more into the social media relationships because, TikTok Shop came out of nowhere. Instagram tried to do Instagram shopping and it was 400 million in revenue and they ended up killing it because it was cannibalizing some of their ads business. But that doesn't mean they're not going to restart it. And I think leaning into that, because it's such an important lever for brands, is really important. So it's going to continue to evolve. Long story short.
What's the Anders,
Yeah.
the X factor there? Like of the brands that have the biggest and best programs, what are they doing that's different than the rest of the pack?
What are they doing that's best than the rest of the pack? I mean, there's a confirmation bias in a lot of creator marketing, meaning the biggest brands don't have a discovery issue, for example, right? I would say, Dan, you've gotten your brand to a place now where it's very well recognized in the creatine gummy space, starting from zero, to be clear, but you do that very effectively. Some people never break through that gap, right? And then you get to the point where you now have inbound, right? So the best brands break through that brand awareness gap. And then that's the confirmation bias where like everything else gets easier for them, right? So we turn on some of our social media tools where you can collect content. They're getting mentioned in way more stories and posts and reels, and it's a lot easier for them to grow. They also have a lot more leverage in those relationships, right? So I think that's kind of this unfair advantage that happens. The second thing I'd say is probably it's just someone who's very, very hands-on in owning the relationships. I know I keep mentioning that, but like you just can't undersell it, right? The people that just treat people like, a spreadsheet line item doesn't make any sense. If I generated 20K in sales for Create and you treat me like an employee who had just generated 20K in sales as an employee, you'd go, that's an amazing return on this employee. Like I'm going to invest time into scaling up Anders' time into doing whatever he's doing, right? So treating them like the people they are, and also very importantly, being very blunt with them and saying, look, I want this to be a great income source for you. And I think that's a little bit of a messaging that a lot of people don't talk about. And I think this is some of the best programs do this. I won't call out some of them because I know like some of their numbers are a little bit more secretive, but some of the best brands, they get their affiliate program or their influencer program to be their secondary or primary source of income for that creator. That creator has a family, they have expenses. Like the people that I think are the most short-sighted take a small affiliate commission. They're really worried about overpaying the creator, but they're not comparing it to the CAC that they have on paid. And if you're willing to like kind of put your hand over your eyes and pay Meta X amount, you should definitely be able to be confident enough in your LTV to pay a creator the exact same money, and very importantly, communicate that to the creator that I want this to work for you. I want us to send you a 1099 at the end of the year because you're making so much more money than we thought you would, and then that scales up over time. So it's a lot of it's alignment, and a lot of it's also I think the confirmation bias with building a great brand, and you'll see that over time. So there's no secret sauce, and it's also a mix of trying everything, right? I think similar to what Dan said earlier on blended CAC, okay, you may put some budget to upfront payment. Maybe it's celebrities, maybe it's tier one creators that have a big following, maybe it's podcasts. Then you have to still go at the affiliate basis and micro creators. You have to make your customers feel seen. All of those things end up feeding each other. If you get a macro creator and a lot of affiliates see that, they aspire to be that macro creator, right? So if you're working with that tier of a creator, there's a reason that they want to feel affiliated with your brand because that macro creator is now affiliated with your brand. So those channels are not in isolation, which is why we allow brands to run that all in one place. But that would be my perspective on the breakout players.
Definitely agree fully. I think reaching that escape velocity, like we love leveraging big macro creators to inspire like and attract the smaller community members. Yeah, for sure. So reaching that escape velocity, I spend so much time trying to convince brands like, hey, you've got to reach escape velocity. We have to invest into this in the channel and see momentum. And then that efficiency follows the virality, so to speak, regardless of channel. I think we've seen that, Dan, right? Like on TikTok, that's exactly what we did the first 2 months and it seemed to work.
Yeah, and to that point, like how many call it like small to medium to even like relatively big creators have felt more comfortable selling athletic greens now that like Huberman is their like, macro creator, right? Like it's like a fluff to the flame in that sense. And like another point about AG1 is like AG1 was athletic greens for 10 years before anyone really knew about it. And like they built up such a large base, going back to the blended side of things, like they built this like medium-sized business that essentially allowed them to invest in these more top of channel funnels like influencer, like macro celebrities, like all these things that like have basically resulted in everyone in the country knowing at least what AG1 is. But I say this to say it's like kind of a time and market and a luck thing. Like they were a medium-sized company for 10 years, and then like COVID hits, Tim Ferriss becomes increasingly more popular, and like Joe Rogan becomes increasingly more popular, and then they sign Huberman like right as he's taking off. And so a lot of this really is just like, how can you stay alive, and then like when the opportunity strikes, again, like triple, quadruple down.
Yeah, totally. And I want to circle back to your second point, Anders, because I feel like it's really, really powerful, which is like the mindset of being the coach to the creator. And, as an agency, we don't have that founder standpoint, but we can act like their coach. Like we want you to win. Like our job is to put as much money in your pocket and see you be successful. Yeah, you want a paid campaign? I want that for you. Let's help you get there. Here's what the brand is looking for. And then once we get those winning case studies, leveraging that as inspiration for the rest of the community. Hey, this creator has made this much. Here's the playbook on how you get there too. And I've seen that again, like you mentioned, most of these programs that are doing so well, they take that coach mentality early on and like almost paint the picture of how much you can earn and let me help you get there.
Yeah, and what you're seeing across TikTok Shop content, and I think TikTok Shop is doing this really in a smart way, is that other TikTok Shop creators are creating the, hey, this is how I made $100,000 last month, right? And I just posted a video on this on LinkedIn today, which was about, there's democratized information around, okay, I look for viral products. And I found this really interesting. Actually, I found that video of this one woman talking about how she scopes out for products. And she's one of the top creators on TikTok Shop. And basically, she's like, I look for products that are already going viral, which says something very interesting. Or she says that has viral potential. But the ones that are already going viral, you click into the products, you see they have a free sample, they have good commission, they have inventory. And then you look and you see how many views did that other post from Create get? And what that means over time is that success begets success. So if Create's doing well on TikTok Shop, you can have breakout success, right? Because creators are thinking, who else is performing? Why wouldn't I already choose a winning category? And then maybe on the third, organic kind of / paid partnership on TikTok Shop for Create, I convert, right? Maybe I saw Dan's content and I saw someone else's content, and then I converted on XYZ's content, and like that person had found Create through the search page and saw that it was already viral. So I think there's this compounding effect over time. It's similar to what you said, Dan, on Athletic Greens. They were stable for a very long time. Now they're buying ads at Wimbledon, and now they have exclusives with all the tier one creators. And so the success begets success over time. And it just, the shorter way to say it is founders need to be thinking about how to invest in the channel over a 6-month period rather than a 3-month period, sometimes even a 12-month period over a 6-month period, depending on, their goals and objectives. But there will be compounding effects over time, even if you don't see it right away.
How do you guys think about how sustainable something like TikTok Shops is, where like financialization is built into it
Yep.
from day one. I almost think of it like crypto, for example, where adoption is super vibrant day one because financialization was built into it from the start. But over time, once that arbitrage goes away, like the
Yep.
emperor in some cases has no clothes, like do you think that TikTok will be able to get over this initial traction largely based off of like having a bunch of people hawk products they probably don't care as much about as like if you see someone on Instagram talking about a product, like they care about what their followers think about them hawking a product. They care about like what other
Hmm.
brands think. If you're a creator on TikTok Shop, like you're pretty nakedly doing it for the commission, which is all good and well, because I think people like know that a little bit. But do you think like with that as its core tenant, it can sustain over long periods of time?
It's a great question. I mean, what we're asking is, can social commerce on a first principle level work, on an affiliate basis on TikTok Shop, and can it also work on Instagram over time? I would say phase one, they knew what phase they were in. It was kind of the drop ship, Temu type product. Hey, you need to have a bot on your top of funnel, messaging as many people as possible. You need outrageous discounts for these things to work. And you need a lot of people who are actually just like, they want the quick cash. They want to see how it does over time. Phase two, you have to get higher quality brands, higher quality creators, less botting, less noise in the DMs. I think they're in that transition right now. And I think how well they do that transition is going to really predict the future, but it's very clear that they're very open to it. And they
Yeah.
know that that's the objective, right? And as a brand, I think a lot of people are saying, well, why wouldn't I at least try it and have a distribution channel for that? What we see is, we have our own application forms where people can apply to their program. So let's just say you do your application form across your SMS and email and your Instagram and your TikTok, and then I'm a great TikTok creator and I apply. I'm very likely to just put them there on that affiliate basis, which is also why we work with TikTok Shop as well. I think personally it's here to stay. I
Yeah.
think it will always play a role. I think it'll be less creators with higher performance over time, and that they've actually broken through the kind of like cold start problem that you have with a lot of social commerce, where Instagram, there are a lot of reasons Instagram shut down their own program, but I think TikTok Shop
Yeah.
knew what space they were in, but they have to make that transition, and it's gonna be challenging, but I think they're gonna do it. The only final thing I'll mention is start asking the younger generation that your cousins, your friends, your family, how much they've bought on TikTok Shop. I started doing this recently and it was fascinating. I have like some of my youngest cousins, they're buying a bunch of stuff on TikTok Shop
Yeah.
directly.
It's cool.
And I may not do that as much. I may do more research so that it'll always be great for the direct response channel. What happens, like, will I come back to TikTok Shop and back to that to buy that product after I've thought about it and educated? I'll probably go to the DTC site or I'll go to Amazon, maybe, but maybe I will go back to the content. I think it's very generational. We're going to see a blend in those phases and a blend across generations.
Yeah, I mean, currently we're seeing what, a 5 to 10% repurchase rate. That'll just increase, I think.
Yep.
But I think it's akin to Amazon early days, like it's an always on sale channel. There's companies that were built on Amazon today. They're some of the biggest in the world. So I think we are at the forefront of social commerce changing. Obviously, Meta's going to follow suit. YouTube's doing the same. So like it's early days. It will shift. We're already seeing it. TikTok's already implementing things like thresholds for outreach, and they're trying to weed out some of the noise. I'm particularly excited, Honors, about what you guys are potentially integrating into the future because we're seeing that some of the best performance we're getting off of the TikTok Shop kind of mass outreach outside channels where you can kind of curate a better relationship and then walk them into TikTok Shop and make them more of like a VIP partner. So I think that is where it's already headed. A little bit less noisy too.
Yeah. I think we also have to ask this first principle question, which is, who do they think they're competing against? And I think they think they're competing against Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like, people go to Amazon to shop, right? And it goes to this principle, which is the expectation nowadays is that entertainment and education are totally blended. And they're now saying entertainment is always a proxy and education are also a proxy of a purchase decision. So commerce is a natural, thing to do there. I'm not sure if you've seen this for Prime Day. Amazon does a bunch of ads where they do swipe ads. And the moment you like a product and you swipe, it opens up the link to go to Amazon, which is actually very interesting because then they're just getting that data, even if you don't purchase there, because they know you're going to go back on Amazon. So I think that there's ways that Amazon is combating that. I think Shopify is going to have to do things there over time. I think they're still in a good place, D2C. But like if you don't have a place where, it's top of funnel discovery and distribution, I think it becomes a game where we're like everyone's kind of frenemies, but they're kind of competing. And I believe they are really competing against Amazon over time.
To that point, why have they not rolled out like what I would consider a scaled ad product beyond like some of the biggest brands in the world can barely spend a few $1,000s a day on the Shop app. Like where strategically does that not fit into Shopify's overall vision?
Yep. So what I've seen across the board for Shopify investing and trying to be defensive in the space is I think they've made a big bet on Shop app, and they put they basically use like tracking and, some deals to try to get people to the Shop app. But the problem is that you don't have content there, right? And so I would probably recommend that they try to introduce content into the Shop app over time, because people need to go to the Shop app for education, and people expect education to be video based. It's why like a lot of our landing pages are video based, although they're on the web, right? We see a lot of people watch the video and convert even if there's like a full blown landing page below. And so I think Shopify has to invest in content for the Shop app. They can also consider how content can live horizontally across the social media platforms. Maybe they integrate as a result, and people just use that as like the new reinvention of like a review. But I think I don't think you can't run an ad product without that, because you don't have the eyeballs, and no one's there. And so I actually made this post the other day where I thought that this sounds a little bit ludicrous. I think Amazon should try to buy TikTok. And you could argue Shopify's at a $90 billion cap right now, market cap. You could argue that they should try to buy TikTok. And that seems weird. Like it's almost a third of their company probably that the price is going to be, or maybe it's even more. But like we're at an unprecedented time where this type of a deal and transaction would uniquely go through antitrust, and it wouldn't get blocked because it's such a special case. When else could Amazon buy an asset like TikTok, or when else could Shopify buy an asset like TikTok? I think those CEOs, and it sounds so aggressive, but I think those CEOs need to realize that the average American above the age, I think, of 40 is watching 3 to 4 hours of TV still a day, and that's shifting for the younger generation to 100% social media. So it's like, it's the new attention in the attention economy. And I would probably be looking at buying the asset. If that ends up going through, there's a lot of things that could happen at the executive branch, at the legislative branch, that could actually help or hurt that. But if I was the CEO of Amazon, I'd be looking at it aggressively.
Agreed. Yeah. We'll see if Lena Khan lets that happen, or if it matters what Lena Khan thinks come November.
Yep.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts as we out? Want to leave the audience with some wisdom?
Wisdom, I would say I would really try to, if you're an influencer and affiliate marketing manager, I would really try to educate your founders on some of the things that we were talking about today, which is to view things in the long term. If you're a founder, I would say, listen to what Dan said. Athletic Greens, their influencer and athletic or affiliate program was not built overnight, and it took many, many months and sometimes even years. And so you can't ignore creators and influencers and affiliate. You can't just say influencers don't work for us. You have to find a way to make them work for you, because they are distribution in 2024, and they will continue to be going forward. And of course, I hope we can provide more and more resources at Superfiliate to just make that easier, to make that case internally.
I would add to that, the challenge is to think about North Star metric being more LTV to CAC ratio as opposed to ROAS.
Yep.
Loosen up your grip on what you're willing to pay influencers, because you're going to pay it to Zuck or you're going to pay it to them. And the long tail value you'll get out of investing in your creators is so much greater. And then measure success over 6 months. Look at LTV and just make sure you're moving accordingly to that.
I lost you a little bit towards the end there, but I guess my parting piece of wisdom, I couldn't hear you. I'm sure it all made sense. But I guess my parting piece of wisdom is like, I have so many conversations with other founders or marketers, and like the question is like, so like influencer, does it work? Or like, what do you think about influencer? And that's like a very, I would say, like, it's a false dichotomy. It doesn't need to be a binary question. Like the program just has to fit the the context of your specific business. Like, probably for many brands today, it doesn't make sense to hire like a top of funnel influencer and have them post one time on Instagram. But
Yeah.
hey, that still could work for another brand. It all just it all is kind of contextual. So kind of taking, whether it's my advice or someone else's advice and trying to take a square and put it into a peg hole, like it's just not necessarily going to work. So yeah, I would just say kind of view all of this advice, and specifically when it comes to influencer, through the context and goals of your specific business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that you don't view influencer as one thing too, which is influencers is not, and creators, it's not one thing, right? The difference between a podcaster and a micro creator on TikTok Shop couldn't be a bigger difference, right? Like, and I think
Totally.
saying that influencers don't work for you, I think is what you were saying. It's like a false dichotomy. I think it's a little bit of a generalization. I guarantee for any brand out there, there's a type of creator and a type of creator channel that will work for you. You just have to find it. And yeah, so it's definitely out there for you.
Good stuff, guys. This was fun. We'll have to do it again. I appreciate
Sweet.
you both.
Thank you so much.
All right, boys. Thank you.
Later.